All right. Welcome everyone to this informational webinar on the Nuclear Safety Training and Workforce Development Program. It goes by the acronym NRST. My name is Drew Thomas. I'll be facilitating this session today. I am the manager of the Nuclear Energy External Innovations Integration Office at the Idaho National Laboratory, and we'll be conducting this webinar. It will be recorded, so if you do not consent to be recorded, please do drop off this meeting. Recording will become available after the session ends today. With that, I want to welcome our first speaker, Alice Capinetti, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Strategic Crosscuts at DOE Office of Nuclear Energy. Alice, I'll turn the time to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Drew. And I realize at the beginning of the hour, it can take people a couple seconds coming in. And can we just get a sense from registrations? Do we feel like we have enough folks on to get started, or did you want to wait another minute?
Yeah, I think we do, Alice. So we have about 60 to 70% of our registrants already in. So
excellent. Okay, thanks. And hi, everyone. I'm Alice Capinetti, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Strategic Crosscuts. And on behalf of the Office of Nuclear Energy, I would like to welcome you to this informational webinar. So thank you for joining us today as we cover the importance of building the nuclear energy workforce and to share important information about an upcoming funding opportunity. Now, more so than ever, there's a lot of excitement and interest in the role that nuclear energy will play in the nation's clean energy portfolio. Here at the U.S. Department of Energy, we're working diligently not only to support the operating fleet of reactors, but also to demonstrate and deploy advanced reactor technologies to help meet ambitious energy and climate goals by 2050. As we look into the future, we recognize that a key need is ensuring that we have an educated and diverse workforce equipped with the right knowledge, skills, and abilities to help maintain the current light water reactor fleet. Today, the U.S. reactor fleet provides nearly half of the nation's clean energy and employs approximately 100,000 people. As nuclear plants renew their operating licenses and extend their lifespans, and in some cases, returning from early retirements, we're confronted with an aging workforce. We know that the long-term operation and sustainability of the reactor fleet is essential to reaching decarbonization goals while keeping pace with growing energy demands. We also anticipate the number of jobs in the nuclear energy sector will swell to 375,000 when we account for deployment and commercialization of advanced nuclear reactors. Which begs the question, where will the next generation of nuclear energy workers come from? Hopefully, that's where you come in. During today's webinar, you will learn more about the Nuclear Reactor Safety Training and Workforce Development Program, funding opportunity, which will be officially announced, we believe, on September 30th. The funding opportunity announcement's focus is on the development and implementation of a reactor safety training program and the establishment or enhancement of industry-recognized nuclear safety training credentials. In a moment, the team will walk you through the funding opportunity, including anticipated funding levels and eligibility. The government share of this effort is $100 million, which is a lot of money by anyone's measure. We are hoping to receive quality applications that represent partnerships that can be self-sustaining well beyond the duration of cost-shared awards. So thank you again for joining us today to learn more. We are building in time at the end for questions. So now I'll turn the floor back over to Drew. Thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. We'll move along in our agenda, introducing Jenna Payne, the program analyst who's leading this effort out of the Office of External Innovations. She'll be providing a funding opportunity announcement overview for the Nuclear Reactor Safety Training and Workforce Development funding opportunity. Jenna, to you.
Thanks, Drew. CC, looks like we're further along in the presentation. Or is that just on my end? Can we get back to the?
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Okay, now it is. Okay, sorry, it was delayed on my end. Thank you.
Oh, no
okay.
worries.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jenna Payne, and I'm with NE's Office of External Innovation. I provide support to both Alice and Aaron Gravel for NE's university programs. Want to echo Alice's thanks and gratitude for everyone taking the time to be with us today to listen in on this informational webinar for the NRST funding opportunity. I have a few slides that outline the overall structure of this new funding opportunity that I'd like to go over with you. But once I get through those, we'll open it up for questions, and then I think take a quick break, and then we'll hand things over to Jeff Rigby to discuss the required forms and required cost share associated with the FOA. Next slide, please. Okay, to kick things off, you can find all information regarding this upcoming funding opportunity on its program page found at the top of this slide. The QR code to the right will take you there as well. You can find the latest updates on the NRST program, including upcoming deadlines and resources on this program page, including today's webinar recording, which we'll post there just for your reference. Once the FOA has been issued, it can be accessed by both sam.gov and grants.gov with courtesy copies posted to both the NUP and GAIN websites. Applications will need to be submitted through the application site at proposalsworkforce.inl.gov. Any questions related to the registration process and the use of the application submittal site can be submitted to the NRST at inl.gov email address that you see here. And for awareness, both the application site and that email account will go live tomorrow afternoon, September 26th, in preparation for the FOA release. Finally, if you have questions regarding the FOA itself, please submit those questions to nrst@id.doe.gov. For everyone listening, especially those who may not have a lot or any experience in applying for government funding opportunities, if you need assistance or resources to help fill out the forms required for this FOA, or if you in any way feel that the process creates a barrier to application for your team, please don't hesitate to reach out to us for clarification or assistance. As Alice mentioned, $100 million is a lot of money, and we want to see high quality applications with impactful results. So we're more than happy to walk you through the process and assist you in any way that we can. Next slide, please. We're expecting the FOA to be continuously open until funding is no longer available. So consideration of additional rounds of applications will be given should adequate funding remain. Our team is working really hard to get this out the door by Monday, September 30th, which will make applications for this first round due on January 14th, 2025. And we anticipate making our award announcements in late May or early June 2025. Next slide, please. Okay, so Alice mentioned that it's estimated that 375,000 additional trained workers will be required for the nuclear energy workforce to research, design, build, maintain, and operate new reactors while also maintaining the current nuclear reactor fleet. So this NRST FOA focuses on the demonstration and implementation of reactor safety training programs to ensure the nuclear fleet has the trained, dedicated workforce necessary to both maintain safe and efficient operation and to address this challenge. So as such, we're looking for applications to, one, establish a consortium with multiple partners from various entities included but not limited to institutions of higher education, foreign and nonprofit entities, state and local governmental entities, Indian tribes, national labs, utilities. Two, identify gaps in training, recruiting, and retaining skilled workers in the current nuclear workforce. Three, develop or enhance one or more industry-recognized nuclear reactor safety credentials that can be used to establish a national standard for workers to work across reactor types. And four, identify pathways for sustainability of developed training programs and credentials beyond the project period of performance. Next slide, please. All right, the NRST FOA will be split into two topic areas to help create a robust environment where consortia that are ready to hit the ground running to implement and deploy a comprehensive strategy can do so, as you see here in topic area 1. Consortia in this category will have already clearly identified nuclear reactor safety training gaps and will execute a project that will result in one or more training programs and industry recognized credentials implemented by workforce development training providers, such as institutions of higher education or nonprofit training providers, private training providers, federally registered apprenticeships, and so on. We also understand that there might be folks out there who are interested in applying to this FOA, but maybe haven't had the opportunity to fully establish their team. So Topic Area 2 affords those other teams to the ability to, develop innovative and unique regional or national training and workforce curriculum and prepare for a larger implementation award. This is a development-focused opportunity targeting the identification and development of training pathways, curriculum and faculty development at universities and community colleges to support reactor safety training programs, as well as establishing sustainable long-term partnerships with utilities, employers, labor management programs, tribal nations, state and/or local governments, labor organizations, and even K through 12 formal and informal institutions. Next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so projects submitted in response to this FOA must be university-led. And as I already mentioned, we'll need to incorporate multiple partners from state and local governmental entities, tribal nations, national laboratories, utilities, and others. Each institution can submit one application as a prime, either under Topic Area 1 or Topic Area 2 per round. There is no limitation to the number of applications an entity can submit as a sub-applicant. Foreign applicants are not eligible for this FOA, either as a prime or sub-applicant. And Topic Area 2 recipients for this first round are eligible to apply to Topic Area 1 in future rounds. Next slide, please. A little background: awards made under this FOA will be funded with funds appropriated by the bipartisan infrastructure law. Up to $50 million in funding will be made available for this initial round, and we anticipate another $50 million to be available for another round of applications in 2025, which is contingent on appropriations. For Topic Area 1, as you can see here in the table, we estimate awarding 1 to 8 projects. Given the scope of these projects, we envision teams will propose a minimum of $5 million, but we do have a federal funding ceiling of $40 million, so that gives teams plenty of flexibility to pitch strong collaborative and innovative ideas to this funding opportunity. For Topic Area 2, we are looking to award 1 to 10 projects with an anticipated minimum of $500,000 and a federal funding ceiling of $2 million. Next slide, please. All right, these next 2 slides kind of give a big overview for each of the topic areas. Some of the information I've already been through, but at least you can see it all in one place. So a quick summary of Topic Area 1 again. This one is focused on the demonstration and implementation of reactor safety training programs and the establishment or enhancement of industry-recognized nuclear reactor safety training credentials. The project duration for these awards will be up to 5 years with an annual continuation review. Again, the federal funding ceiling for these Topic Area 1 projects is $40 million, and NE is anticipating awarding up to 8 cooperative agreements under this topic area. Next slide, please. All right, to summarize Topic Area 2, we envision these projects to be 1 to 2 years in duration with a federal funding ceiling of $2 million. Rather than cooperative agreements, NE anticipates awarding Topic Area 2 projects as grants. We're looking at up to 10 grants for this first round of applications. And as mentioned previously, those awarded as Topic Area 2 participants this round will be eligible to apply to Topic Area 1 in future rounds. Next slide, please. All right, this is the criteria we're currently looking at for Topic Area 1 applications. There are 4 criteria. Each will have an additional subset of factors that will be considered during evaluations. Criterion 1 is the application's technical merit, innovation, proposed methods, and impact, and this is weighted at 40%. Criterion 2 is the extent to which the application establishes or supports a sustainable, industry-recognized nuclear reactor safety credential. This will be weighted at 30%. I do want to make special mention of the fact that this will be where the sustainability of a program beyond the period of performance will be evaluated. Alice mentioned this just a bit ago, the fact that it's critical for awarded projects under this FOA to be self-sustaining beyond federal support. So I want to make sure potential applicants recognize that this is where that will be evaluated. Criterion 3 is a requirement for bill-funded FOAs. So the community benefits plan is a requirement and will be weighted at 20%. Finally, criterion 4 takes a look at the project's team makeup. Does the team have the necessary knowledge, skills, capabilities, and project resources to successfully accomplish the proposed scope, that kind of thing. Next slide, please. This is the criteria we're currently looking at for Topic Area 2 applications, a few of which will follow similarly to Topic Area 1. Again, we're looking at 4 criteria here, each with a list of sub-factors that will be considered during evaluation. Criterion 1 is the application's technical merit, innovation, proposed methods, and impact, again, weighted at 40%. Criterion 2 is the effectiveness of partnering, curriculum, and faculty development, weighted at 30%. Again, criterion 3 is our required community of benefits plan, again, weighted at 20%. And then finally, criterion 4 takes a look at the project's team makeup. To conclude my remarks, while we are going through the FOA structure as it currently sits, I encourage everyone to read through the final funding opportunity once it is released, as there's always a chance that something could change, and we want to make sure everyone has the most up-to-date information. So get on grants.gov, sam.gov, and take a look at that document once it's issued. With that, I'll hand things back over to Drew and Cece, and we can get to the Q&A portion of this presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Jenna. Great presentation. We will open up the floor for folks to ask questions about the funding opportunity overview. To broadcast what we're doing for the rest of the webinar after this question and answer, we'll be taking a quick break, and then we'll be turning the time over to Jeff Rigby at DOE Idaho to go over the application forms, cost sharing requirements, some of the more detailed discussion about how the funding opportunity is structured. So from that standpoint, we will open up for questions. If you do have questions, you'll notice that you're muted right now. You're welcome to put them in the chat. You can also raise your hand and we can unmute you, and you can ask your question live. So with that, I'll open up the question and answer period.
This is really important, so please, not a time to be shy. This is an excellent opportunity to ask questions, and there are no stupid questions when it concerns $100 million.
All right, Ruben, we've opened your mic. You can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. Ruben, yeah, Ruben, you'll have to unmute your own mic and then you should be able to talk.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh, I've been listening patiently to the first presenter outlining the programs that mine is not really a question. Mine is to commend the organizers for such a wonderful, it's not really about the money per se, but knowledge base. I must commend the organizers for this. We are listening for now, but as we progress, there'll be questions. Just to comment, thank you for what you are doing. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ruben, and we recognize this is, the first communication of the funding opportunity. Would encourage you to interact with the websites that Jenna put up on her presentation. We do have folks at the integration office and at DOE Idaho who are ready to answer questions, help folks with their applications. So thank you for the comment. Let's go to Thomas Johnson. If you could introduce yourself and just where you are from, and then go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Tom Johnson at Colorado State University. I actually have two questions. The first one is, it says, if I read this correctly, it says, give priority to universities located with 50 miles of reactors that were constructed prior to 1980 that have had significant safety issues. We're within 50 miles, but that reactor has been shut down for about 20 years. Does that qualify us? Because it does not say that the reactor has to be operating. And the next question is on the 50%. Now, I believe it says also in kind is allowed. And where does that 50% have to come from? Must it come from, who does it have to come from? That's my next question. And can it be a national lab that we partner with that provides that?
I can answer the cost share. Oh, sorry, Drew.
I was going to say, yeah, I think maybe we'll split those up. Alice can maybe handle the first one. Jenna, you can handle the second one. Go ahead, Jenna.
Sure. Okay. Now I was just going to say for the cost share requirement, Jeff will go into more detail on that in just a few minutes in his presentation. It is a 50% minimum cost share. This falls under the responsibility of the prime applicant. However, it does not have to come from the university lead. It can be in kind, as you had mentioned, and it can come from a national laboratory partner if that's what your team decides, as long as that 50% requirement is met.
All right, Alice, on the first question, let's turn time to you.
Yeah, so the motivation behind receiving funds to be able to launch this funding opportunity was around ensuring that existing operating plants have the workforce needed to support safe operations. And for plants that have had long operational experience, which is what was described in the congressional language that accompanied the appropriation, it's recognized that there's a lot of learnings that plants can go through that inform how the workforce is trained in the future. So the skills that are needed to keep our existing plants operating safely are certainly relevant, and also for it's the same skill set that will be needed as we see nuclear deployments built out more broadly. The precise way to evaluate that language will be laid out in the funding opportunity itself. So there's going to be a lot of detail in the funding opportunity about how an applicant should consider some of those factors. And that would also be a place where there's going to be opportunities to be able to ask questions for clarification. And when there are questions, we will ensure that any answers to help clarify those questions are made available to everybody out of fairness. So I think when you see the funding opportunity and you see how it's laid out and how we're requesting information, hopefully that will provide more information, and we'll certainly have an opportunity to provide more context for how we're going to be looking at supporting these applications.
Hey, can I just add real quick, just as another a side note, know that that the official Q&A for this FOA will be posted at the id.energy.gov website. So you'll be able to see all of that there. So this FOA webinar today will be posted there. So you'll be able to get, of course, questions and answers that are part of this day. But all future questions that we get, again, back to, I think it was the very first slide that Jenna shared, had some important email addresses. All of those emails, questions that go to those email addresses will be answered in writing. We'll try to respond by email, but also make all of those responses to the questions provided available to everybody as part of that Q&A.
And that slide will be shared again near the end of the webinar. So if you didn't get a chance to jot down the information you needed to, it'll pop back up again.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Jenna. We have quite a few questions in the chat, which we'll get to in a moment. I do want to turn time over to Karen first, who has your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. This is Karen Kirkland. I'm from Department of Nuclear Engineering, Texas A&M University. And this looks like a really unique opportunity. I haven't seen a program solicitation like this before. My question is, are you going to give are you more interested in having development of programs at the university level, since you're asking them to be university led, so for bachelor's, master's, PhD, or are you looking more for training, which would be less than a 4-year degree?
Karen, I would think we would be interested in seeing any or all ideas that you have. I think the intent is looking at training here, but how you define that in terms of at the university, or if it's established at a utility near the plant or a national laboratory, I think would be up to the proposing team. But I would think both of those would be acceptable submittals.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jenna. We're going to move to a question coming from the chat. What is the required match contribution for the application?
So,
go ahead, Aaron.
No, go ahead, Jenna. It's fine.
No, I was just going to repeat that we are looking at a 50% minimum cost share requirement. And again, that'll be discussed in a little more detail with Jeff's presentation, but please add to that, Aaron.
No, that's right. It's a 50% match. So, and there might be an example, I think, at the end of the presentation on what that looks like, but it's if it's a $1 million application, then for requesting federal funds at $1 million, then there would be a $1 million requirement cost share from the applicant.
All right, thanks, Aaron and Jenna. Let's turn to Jason Valtos next. You have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Jason Valtos. I'm the current functional area manager for maintenance and technical training for TVA. So just to clarify, this program seems primarily garnered for secondary education and not utility specific, unless we were to be a co-applicant or a sub-applicant for a particular topic. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the language is designed to be university led, so having a very important role for universities, but we fully anticipate that to have a successful model, especially one that leads to an industry recognized credential, we expect that there would be partnerships of a range of organizations that could include utilities, because the program will need to demonstrate its relevance to addressing the workforce needed for safe operations of plants. And so yeah, I think we're looking for those kinds of proposed partnerships that would lead to the outcome of having an effective and sustained workforce development program that the industry recognizes people coming through that program are ready and capable of contributing to the safe operation of plants.
Understood. So my only comment is, and there may be other utility folks here on this webinar. First of all, I want to say it's a great program, but the only folks that really, the only personnel we really bring in and that get educated outside of the plants are engineers. So our primary, well, I wouldn't say primary, but a large portion of our workforce is folks in the craft, operators, folks in radiation protection or chemistry. Chemistry is another likely outlier, but those folks all channel through accredited training programs, and typically we have a local NUCP partnership, but it's certainly not required in a very small part of our folks that we bring in. So to help develop workforce and to maintain a stronger workforce, which is absolutely a challenge, and I do believe this will help. you know, just keep in mind the majority of our workforce is trained internal through the accredited training programs. So it'll buy us some, but just wanted to make that comment out there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And this is a new and different kind of funding opportunity. And so I think it represents an opportunity. Can we do something different and creative that could perhaps expand outreach and pull in more? So it could be through regional consortia that leverage universities in the area that know how to tap into and have the relationships with community colleges and trade schools. There's a broad way of reaching people. And I will just say, I came to nuclear engineering through an apprenticeship program to teach me how to repair electronic appliances. And you just never know through these kind of programs who you're going to be able to attract into the field and keep them and have them grow and have an impact. So I know I'm really interested in seeing the kinds of applications that are going to come forward and the ideas that will go into responding to this opportunity.
All right, thanks, Jeff, for the question and your response, Alice. Let's get to the chat. There's quite a few questions here. We'll walk through them in order. I'll ask for clarifications if I'm not sure how to interpret the question. So please just look for those in the chat and respond if you can. First question, Jenna, is can you please clarify what's happening on the September 30th, 2024 date?
Yes, that is the exciting date where we're hoping to issue the funding opportunity. So not sure, hopefully we'll hit that date. If not, just continue to look for it on grants.gov. Again, there'll be courtesy copies at nup.gov and on the GAIN websites. You can also reach out to us and be added to our contacts list if you're not already on it, and you'll receive notification when the FOA is released.
All right, thanks, Jenna. Next question is, does this effort include craft worker training or engineering and design staff only?
I would say it includes craft worker training as well.
Next question is, does the applicant need to already have a nuclear engineering program in place?
I don't think so, Alice. Aaron, am I wrong about that? I don't think there needs to be a nuclear engineering program in place at the universities that are leading this.
This is
This is
like's been said. This is different than what you've seen usually come out of our office in terms of university funding opportunities, where they've traditionally focused on R&D and infrastructure support. So this is something different. So I think that we'll see applications come from a variety of different universities. At least we're hopeful that we'll see that. But yeah, very, very much different. So no, I don't think you have to have a nuclear engineering or energy focused type program.
All right, thanks for that answer. Next question seems to be a lot of flexibility for teams, partnerships, consortia, that type of thing. It was mentioned that awards will be contingent on appropriated funds. Is the 100 million no year appropriated dollars, or I think what they're trying to clarify here is available until expended? I'll open that question.
Yeah, thanks. Always a good question, especially when the government's a partner and we have an appropriation process. The good news is that these dollars are from an infrastructure funding source for which the $100 million is available as no year funds until the funds are expended. So we anticipate having those funds available to support awards. And as I believe it was Aaron mentioned, we'll have this initial round, but we expect additional rounds until we have met the objectives of the funding opportunity and the funds remain available.
Yeah, thanks, Alice, for that. Next question. Has there been much collaboration with NRC on this funding opportunity, or is this a DOE NEUP initiative that's totally independent? I recall the ADVANCE Act explicitly directed such workforce development be done by NRC, collaborating with industry and third parties as well?
Thank you for that question. We, the Office of Nuclear Energy, maintains strong coordination with NRC on a range of activities. And, as an example, when we read language about what's expected around the safety of operating plants, one of our first go-to partners is to the NRC to understand how should we interpret that language, think about that language. So yes, we have already reached out to NRC and will continue to do so if we need any help clarifying and refining our program to make sure it's meeting the high level objectives of the funding, which is to support safe operations of our existing fleet. Also recognizing that these workforce skills are going to be essential for broader deployments that will hopefully emerge to meet our climate goals.
All right, thanks, Alice. Next question is, can you elaborate on the review process? Who may be the reviewers? I suspect that there may be potential conflicts in reviewing such large teams. Jenna, do you want to address that one?
I was gonna say I can start off, and then Drew, you can add to that as well if you'd like to. There's always going to be potential conflicts in reviewing any applications that we have. We have a really strong process, one that's very fair and transparent, where if there is a conflict, any kind of reviewer will be recused from that evaluation of an application. I envision that for this funding opportunity, it will be a panel of reviewers that will be hand selected from experts in the area, and we'll try very hard, since that's the makeup of the review panel, to not have any conflicts for anybody reviewing a certain application. So we should be avoiding that pretty well. I don't know, Drew, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, for those who are newer to the Office of Nuclear Energy space, the Office of Nuclear Energy does manage a reviewer database that has about 8,000 to 10,000 reviewers across the nation. That is the pool that we really draw our reviewers from. It's correct that we'll be managing potential conflicts of interest as we build that panel out. We also typically, when there are potential conflicts of interest, make sure that we supplement our review process with independent experts, just to make sure that there's that any conflict is mitigated. So that's something that our contracting officer, which is a position in the DOE complex, manages through all those conflicts to make sure the process, as we've described it, takes place through that review process. So as the funding opportunity comes out, there'll be a little bit more detail about the review criteria, the descriptors for that. And so if there's follow-on questions, I'd encourage everyone to reach out to understand the review process better.
I think just to follow on, Drew, real quick, I think it's important for everybody to know as we work through funding opportunities in the federal government, there's also a required evaluation and selection plan. And those plans are approved and reviewed and approved and are very specific to each funding opportunity. So this FOA will also have an approved evaluation and selection plan where it's approved by senior program officials, management, as well as procurement. And that there's several people that review and make sure that the review process that's outlined for the applicants or applications that we're expecting or asking for, that process is well documented, it's approved, and we follow the process. There's never a time when we don't follow our processes that we document and write and have approved. So just be rest assured that we've got it under control. Like Drew said, please look at the FOA when it comes out. You'll see more information on the criteria, and we won't probably be able to give you much more information on review process, other than just know that it's robust and that it's thorough, and we've had a lot of success over the years doing it this way. but certainly appreciate the question.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Jenna. Next question is also about review criteria. The question is refers to on the topic 1 review criteria, a concern about the final criteria, which is on knowledge, skills, and experience, being at a 10% overall evaluation percentage. The comment here is, if institutes of higher education are supposed to be able to scope a topic 1 proposal, which would be complex, it would seem to be important to determine that they in fact have the wherewithal to execute the program and not just write an attractive proposal. So I think that's the perspective is, if Jenna, maybe you can start on this, of giving a perspective on what is the knowledge and skills and abilities criteria mean, and how is the other criteria addressing that question?
Sure. Sorry, I was just pulling up some additional information. First, thank you for the input. It's something that we can certainly take a look at and discuss as a team here on this side of the fence. Nothing, again, is set in stone, so we can take a look at those percentages, those weights, to make sure they're appropriate for the criteria that is established in the funding opportunity. A lot of times with this team and resource score, we look at the capability of the lead and the proposed team to address all aspects in the proposed work, the probability of success from that team. We look for a diversity of expertise and perspectives from the team. We might look at, inclusion of industry partners for this particular funding opportunity, because we know those partnerships will be critical to project success. We'll look at the sufficiency of the facilities to support the work that's being proposed, as well as the reasonableness of the budget and spend plan that is proposed from the team. So hopefully that answers your question. And as Drew and Aaron have said, make sure you take a look at the funding opportunity once issued. It'll give additional detail on those factors that are considered during the application evaluation.
All right, thanks, Jenna. Next question. Will health physics, radiation safety technicians, and radiochemistry programs be considered?
Yes.
All right, there's a need for clarification here. How many awards/teams are expected under this FOA? I think this individual may have missed the beginning of the presentation. Jenna, could you review that with everyone?
Sure. For topic area 1, we're looking at 1 to 8 projects to be awarded. And then topic area 2, we're looking between 1 and 10.
Okay, that's all the questions I see in the chat. We will continue taking questions in chat, or if you want to raise your hand, we'll be happy to take questions live as well. Next, we've got a couple more questions here, so we're going to keep rolling. Is this opportunity open to law enforcement personnel who deal with nuclear and radioactive materials?
I would say the justification needs to tie to the FOA objectives, which will be clearly stated in the FOA. Generally, we're looking at supporting the safe operations of the existing fleet. So it would need to be relevant to safe operations of nuclear plants.
Thanks for that, Alice. Next question is, you had noted a goal of industry recognized credential, a stamp of approval, and I wonder what the acceptance criteria would be for that. Typically, this would be something that gets recognized by IMPO through the accrediting board. Yet this is not a universal thing, and there's advanced reactor developers like X Energy that have a topical report under review whose main point is it should be noted that certain companies like X Energy do not intend to seek accreditation from the National Nuclear Accrediting Board. Rather, X Energy is seeking a commission-approved facility to develop training program methodology by the commission. So can you comment on that, Alice or Aaron or Jenna, on what the intention is behind industry recognized credential?
First, I'll say it's a very good question, and and I think it needs some thought. But the key thing is that the impact of this program will produce workers who will be recognized as being qualified workforce for plants. It's noted that it looks like X Energy is working with the commission of developing perhaps an alternative accreditation process. I think we'll take that question, and Aaron, we could develop a Q&A around it.
Sure. Yeah, I know that in the FOA you'll see that there's the request says to enhance something that's already in place or being developed, or even potentially develop something new, right? So there's a lot of room, and it's fairly broad. So, but yeah, I agree, Alice. We'll take a look at that and put something else, something more clear as a response.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Alice. Any additional comments there before we move to the next question? Okay. Do you have a metric associated, or what's maybe called a penalty here in this question, that would be applied for universities that sit outside of the 50-mile radius mentioned in the congressional language?
I would say there's definitely not a penalty that will be applied to universities outside of that 50 miles. I think the FOA is looking more at giving more emphasis or receiving priority consideration to those universities located in proximity to plants. I don't know if Alice or Aaron, you have anything to add, but it's certainly not going to be a penalty.
I personally think that we're going to look at quality of application. So because an application comes to us that where a university would sit inside the 50-mile radius, it's still going to have to be a very well put together application, right? In order to, it's not going to be an automatic, right? So we're going to be looking at all applications that are submitted.
All right, those are the questions so far that we have in the chat. We have about 5 to 10 more minutes to take questions in this section of the webinar, and I would be happy to take additional hands, or we've got an additional one in chat, so we'll keep moving along with that. You can also ask questions that way. Next question is a clarification on the law enforcement question. So to clarify, how about law enforcement who are first responders to nuclear or radioactive materials situations?
I think it's the same answer.
Yeah.
That Alice provided before.
The answer there, a good justification for how that would meet the mission of the funding opportunity. Okay, excellent. All right, we'll stick around here for a couple more minutes, and be happy to take additional questions. Once we conclude this question and answer session, we'll take a 15-minute break to reset a little bit, get our next speaker, Jeff Rigby, and his slides loaded up, and then we will be taking a much deeper dive into what are the cost share requirements, what are the application forms that are going to be required, and have a question and answer session as the second half of this webinar. Ruben, I see your hands up. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, when I'm particular about the law enforcement, I work as a first responder on CB arening. So I wanted to know, when she was explaining this, the network at my NEA cracked, so I never got a full explanation on what she was saying. which is why I desired to hear her clearly. I never heard her when she was speaking because of the network impedance in my area here. So please kindly explain whether we are eligible, because we deal with all these materials and we do more of this. So I want to know, please kindly go back to your explanation so that I can understand whether we are fitting into this category. Thank you.
Ruben, I think what I would repeat is when the funding opportunity comes out, please take a read through the first 2 pages of that funding opportunity. It will outline what the mission of DOE Office of Nuclear Energy is. It will outline the specific objectives for this funding opportunity. And I think what Alice and Aaron have emphasized here is once you see those objectives, the justification would need to be made based on how your own application meets those objectives. And so I think we're being open and careful to recognize there's a lot of different occupations, a lot of different trades, a lot of different engineering disciplines and others that all could potentially positively impact the mission of the funding opportunity. It's just a matter of how do you make that justification based on the application that you're making in that space, and that'll be an important consideration for eligibility. So I hope that I maybe summarized that well. But Alice, Aaron, Jenna, others, if there's some clarification that you'd like to put in there, just let me. I'll turn the time to you.
I think that's perfect, Drew.
Okay. And Ruben, as you ask that question, and you look at that funding opportunity, and you have a follow-up question, please submit that to the emails provided in this presentation, and we'll make sure to get a question and answer established in that space.
Maybe during the break, Drew, we can post that slide, unless you had another slide that you were planning to post, but it might be good just to leave that up as a contact information that folks can get written down before we come back.
Yep, we will do that. That's a great suggestion. We have another question in the chat, someone who joined a little bit late. So the question, and Jenna, maybe you can take this one, is could you please summarize what the difference is between topic area 1 and topic 2 is for this funding opportunity?
Sure. So the topic area 1 is designed for teams who are kind of ready to go, ready to hit the ground running. It focuses on the demonstration and implementation of the reactor safety training program, as well as the establishment or enhancement of industry recognized nuclear reactor safety training credentials. This is a larger project with a $40 million federal funding ceiling. These ones are up to 5 years in duration and will be awarded as cooperative agreements. The topic 2 area, they're smaller projects for teams who may be trying to establish their team. Maybe they're looking into more of the development of training, curriculum, and faculty at universities and community colleges to help support the sustainable long-term partnerships with utilities and other entities. These are shorter in duration, 1 to 2 years, with a smaller federal funding ceiling of $2 million. And these will be awarded as grants rather than cooperative agreements. So hopefully that answers your question. Again, we'll have this recording posted to the program website, so you'll be able to view the slides and listen in again if you need that information.
All right, thanks, Jenna. I think that's all the questions we have. We'll just hang on for one last final minute to take a final question. At that point, we'll take a 15-minute break between it's 1:55 Eastern time. Now we'll take a 15-minute break to around 2:10 Eastern time, and turn the time over to Jeff at that point. So last call for questions. Our last question is a good one. Jenna, Can a PI submit a proposal to both topic area 1 and topic area 2?
In different rounds, yes. So and yeah, for lead PI, you can submit one application either under topic area 1 or topic area 2. Let's say you're awarded in topic area 2 this round. When we go out for a second round of applications, you will be eligible to apply for a topic area 1. But for this first round of applications that we're accepting, it's one application to either of the topic areas. Hopefully that was clear. I said topic area a lot.
Yeah, great answer there. And I think that's our last question. So we will take a break here for, we got one more. I'm going to do one more, Jenna, for you. So is there a citizenship requirement for the lead or co-PIs?
Citizenship, for the lead, or co-PIs, I would think that would be run through the lead university, and if they are approved to work within the US, do I have that right here? You might want to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's if they are eligible to be employed in the United States, then they would be eligible to be a lead PI.
Okay. With that, we will take a 15-minute break here. We have the slide, this general information slide up for where you can send questions by email. I'd encourage all of you to do that as the funding opportunity comes out. We'll break here until 2:10 Eastern time and meet back up to talk about our application forms and the cost share requirements. I have our contract specialist from DOE Idaho here to answer all of those questions. So talk to you all in about 15 minutes. All right. My clock is showing we are quickly approaching 2:10 Eastern time. So I'm going to spotlight Jeff Rigby for everyone. And just for everyone's awareness, Jeff is our contract specialist at the DOE Idaho Operations Office for this funding opportunity. Jeff, I'll turn the time over to you to provide any additional introduction and to take it away. Go ahead.
All right, good afternoon. I said I'm Jeff Rigby, stationed based in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and I am the contract specialist associated with this project. So, with that in mind, we're going to go over the forms that are going to be associated with this project. Now, if you've ever done any sort of NEAP type applications or any sort of other FOA, IFOA type applications, most of these forms that we're going to cover, you've seen before. Now, the presentation we're going to have here is going to have three parts. First, we're going to go over with some brief explanations of the forms that most of you have already seen before. Now, with that said, there are 4 forms that are new for this project. And so those 4 forms we're going to cover in the second part with significantly more detail about what they are and what you have to do with them. And then the third part here, we're going to cover the cost share and what it is and number of details to that. So that, in fact, if we can turn to, before we go, the form on the FOA that's going to be released, you will find the list of forms and instructions related to those forms, what they are, why they're required. It's all going to be found between pages 19 and 44 of the FOA when you get it. The forms are found in a link right there in the middle of the screen. There's where all the forms will be. If you have any questions, having troubles finding them, certainly feel free to ask. If we can go to the next slide. So here we have, there are about 28 different forms, or up to about 28 different forms that have to get filled out, depending on what you'll be doing. One of the first forms that you're going to fill out is what's called the SF424, which is the primary application for what you're going to be doing. It will require introducing the prime contractor, whoever it is, their address, phone numbers, email addresses, all those things, as well as primary points of contacts, their names, phone numbers, email address. It will include having to list a brief explanation and a title for your project. And that brief explanation is literally going to be 2 sentences, so it's going to be short. It's fairly easy. It's somewhat simple to fill out. Like I said, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Beyond that, after that, there's also a project abstract, which is a 2-page thing where you summarize your project and what you intend on doing. I said it is limited to 2 pages. And do yourself a favor and don't exceed the 2 pages. But after that, though, the next one is a project narrative where you list in detail all your what your project is and all the intended goals and outcomes and how you're going to get to the end of your project. It will give you up to 50 pages if you really need that much space to explain all your details. And on that, there's also for all the key individuals in your project, you'll have to submit a resume. The resume should be no more than 3 pages. So don't see that. Beyond that, there's also a benefits of collaboration. What that is, if you've not seen it before, is from the prime contractor and whatever other subawards you have, explaining why you're going to use those subawards and the benefits of collaborating with them and how that benefits the government for what we would like to have done. And beyond that, there's also there's going to be a budget justification form and a budget form. The budget justification is going to be a PDF form. In the budget justification, if we can go to the next slide, please. In the budget justification, you're going to explain all your budget pieces from the personnel you're going to be using. If you're going to have any sort of travel, you're going to lay out all the details for, who's going to be, what individual is going to be there and how much they intend to be paid. Those sort of things. Any travel that you're going to include, make sure you include thorough justifications of why that travel is necessary and where you're going and what you're going to do and why it's connected to the project. You'll also be able to explain any sort of equipment you intend on purchasing, as well as supplies and materials. Any subcontracts and subawards that you're going to have all get introduced in the budget justification, as well as any sort of, if you're going to apply like fringe type benefits or indirect rates, that's where you explain what you're doing there and how much you're going to apply. Now, certainly, if you have a federally approved indirect rate agreement or benefits agreement, that makes that really easy. Just but if you don't have those, then it's going to be much more involved to justify your rates and your benefit rates and then those sort of things. But that all gets laid out in your budget justification, and you have to fill it out for the prime, and you have to fill those out for any subawards that you're going to have, which any subcontract that exceeds $250,000 automatically becomes a subaward, as well as any subcontract you're going to have that includes a significant decision-making point in your project that's not you. Those also get to become subawards regardless of their value. So keep that in mind. And there's an Excel form that goes along with the budget justification. That's going to be your budget form, which you lay out the actual values for all your budget categories. You got to do that for the prime and all the subawards. And make sure that your budget categories match what you put in your budget justification. For a lot of people, you've seen that, done that before. Beyond that, there's also there is If you're going to include an FFRDC, which that is short for a federally funded research and development center, if you include those in your project, you have to include a work form from the federal RC that explains what they're doing and how much that's going to cost as part of your project. There's also an environmental coordination form that you have to fill out, which is a checklist that shows how your project will affect the environment. And if it does, what you're going to explain, how you're going to do it, how you're going to protect the environment, and those sort of things. So those are the basic forms that most of you probably have already seen before. Now with that, if you can go to the next slide. You go to the next slide, please. Anybody? There you go. All right. So the 4 forms that are listed on this slide are the 4 forms that are new for this project. And we're going to cover them in more detail. There's what's called an Impacted Indian Tribe Documentation, a Community Benefits Plan, which is quite lengthy. There's summary slides and a continuation budget, which only applies to topic area 1. So if you're applying for topic area 2, the continued budget will not apply. That in mind, you can go to the next slide. The Impacted Indian Tribe Documentation. This is required if anything in your project is going to take place on tribal lands, or if it's going to potentially impact any Indian Native American tribes or the reservations where they live, or any other rights that they have, such as water rights that may be even off of tribal lands. If you're going to in any way impact any of that, this is a documentation that has to be completed. You'll find it in FOA Part 4, Section D22. It's on about page 35 of the FOA when you get there. Now, there's no standard form for this, but this is required to explain if you're going to impact Native American tribes or their lands or their rights. You have to explain how that's going to be affected, and it has to show support from the tribe that you're affected, which can be done in 2 different ways. Either you get a letter of support from the tribal leadership, or you get a resolution from the tribal council or tribal boards. It shows that they agree with what you're going to do, and they will support what you're going to do in whatever ways that will impact their tribe's lands or rights. You can go to the next slide, please. There are a number of resources you can use to look up to see if any of your project parts may impact tribal lands, tribes, or their related rights. And keep in mind, if you're at any point in doubt as to whether or not you need to fill this out, if you're in doubt, please fill it out anyways. It's a far better situation to complete it and then not need it than it is to have not completed it and then needed it, which then puts you in a corner and could put you in ways not to cause problems down the road. So if ever in doubt, please just fill it out, and if it ends up not applying, then that's okay. But there are 4 different links and resources you can pursue to see if anything in your projects may in fact impact anything that's related to Native American tribes, their lands, or their rights. Now keep in mind these 4 links that are provided here, which are also going to be listed in the FOA around page 36 of the FOA when you get it. These 4 resources are not necessarily completely exhaustive of what may need to be researched. So it may be necessary to go beyond just the resources that are provided. And go to the next slide, please. It says, as part of this form, applicants are required to document any efforts to identify any potential impacts to the native tribes, their lands, and their rights. That includes Alaska natives or Hawaii natives or any of those sort of wherever it applies. It does include any sort of historical sites or sacred sites which may or may not be on tribal lands. The point is to identify and propose actions that may impact any native tribe resources or reserved rights, any of their tribal resources, which are not limited to their reservations or their associated rights. Please also explain any actions taken by the applicant to mitigate or address any potential impacts to the tribes, their lands, or their associated rights, and whatever you are doing to engage with those tribes as part of your application. There's no minimum or maximum length for this form, whatever it takes to appropriate and accurately explain what you're doing and the support you receive from those tribes is what's needed. Now with that, we're going to go to the next slide, which gets into what's called the Community Benefit Plan, which there is a template for this found at the link at the top of this slide, the proposalworkforce.inl.gov. Now, the Community Benefit Plan does a number of things. There are 4 goals that are part of the Community Benefit Plan. There's what's called the community labor engagement. It's called investing in quality jobs, advancing DEIA initiatives, and also the contributing to the Justice 40 initiatives. Now, the last 2 there are actually specific priorities of the current White House administration. So before anybody asks, it's like, yes, we are aware that in 40 days there's a presidential election, and in 4 months there's going to be a new president beyond who's there right now. Now the question is, will that change? And the answer is, we don't know. If it does, we'll address it when it happens, but as it stands right now, we're going to follow the priorities of the current White House administration, which includes both of these, advancing DEIA and contributing to Justice 40 initiative. If it changes, we'll adjust and we'll go with that. But for now, this is what we're going to follow. The community benefit should indicate the applicant's intention to engage meaningful with labor and community stakeholders as part of these goals. If the applicant chooses not to provide, as part of the community benefit plan, you don't have to use the template that is going to be provided. However, if you choose to create your own document, you have to include all the parts and pieces that are included in the community benefits plan. And it is a lengthy document. It's about 28 pages long. So it is to your benefit to use the templates that are provided. But if you choose not to, make sure you include all the parts that are needed to be addressed in the community benefits plan. If we can go to the next slide. And here's a more detailed description of what's part of the 4 parts of the community benefit plan. As far as starting with community and labor engagement, the point there is to describe the applicant's plan to engage with specific stakeholders and organizations, including local governments, tribal groups, university and colleges, labor unions, other economic development agencies. Describe any existing agreements that you may have with these types of groups that can be used to fulfill the requirements of what you're going to do for your project. Beyond that, after that, the next category is invest in quality jobs. The point of this section is for applicants to describe their approach to investing in high quality jobs for sufficient quality to attract and retain skilled labor in the workforce, workforce education and training of both new and incumbent workers. Describe any actions supporting workers, organizing, developing community collective bargaining consistent with National Labor Relations Acts and any existing or developing commitments that you may have. Part 3, Section 3 is the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. This section is to summarize the applicant's plan to incorporate diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility objectives. Include actions to serve disadvantaged, minority, and underserved businesses, persons, as well as commitments to reduce barriers and improve access to jobs for local workers, wherever you're at. And then the 4th section is the Justice 40 initiative, which is to provide an overview of benefits to disadvantaged communities. This section focuses on environmental and climate issues and what is being done to benefit affected communities. Applicants, as part of this section, are directed to use the White House Council on Environmental Qualities, Climate, and Economic Justice screening tools. That's also listed in the FOA. In fact, that whole line you can literally Google and find as well. And you're supposed to use that as a guide for addressing the issues in this section. Now, if we can go to the next slide. This right here, what you see on this slide is, in fact, actually the first page that you'll encounter in the Community Benefits Plan. As you can see, there are several different parts to each section that needs to be asked. Some questions are going to have shorter answers. Some will have significantly longer answers, multiple sentences, multiple paragraphs, all those things. And yes, all of the relevance, all of those do have to be, anything that's relevant does have to be addressed. If you don't answer any of the lines, please explain why you don't think that does apply. But this gives you a snapshot of what you're going to see as you go through the Community Benefits Plan. I'm not going to go through every page of the Community Benefits Plan. Like I said, it is about 28 pages long. So there's a lot to it, and it does get a little tedious. But certainly, if you have any questions or concerns as you go through it, feel free to ask, and we will provide whatever assistance we can. You can go to the next slide. Basically, the Community Benefit Plan, in the upper left corner, you'll see there are 6 sections to the Community Benefit Plan. The first one is a general project information. And after that, sections B, C, D, and E go into the 4 parts of the Community Benefit Plan: your community and labor engagement, your investment in quality jobs, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and then the Justice 40 initiative. Section F, the last one, is a whole summary of what you've done, and we'll cover that in a little bit in the next slide. Also on this slide, there are 2 parts to that I've included to show you what you need to do. As part of some of the community benefits plans, it does ask you to discuss any agreements you may have. Where those relevant, the community benefit plan provides up to like 6 different agreements that you can cover. If you have more agreements than that, you can certainly add those. It is a Word document, so you can add sections if you have more agreements that are relevant. If you only have 2 or 3 relevant agreements, then fill out what you got and go with that. Also on the right side is another section. That's the beginning section for the diversity, equity, inclusion. This is what it's going to look like. All the 4 sections look generally similar to what you see up here. Like I said, if you do run into any questions or concerns of how to address these things, certainly feel free to ask as you go through it. If you can go to the next slide, please. And this is the part of the summary section, which actually is about half of the community benefit plan. In section S, the summary section, you're literally going to summarize what you've written in all the sentences and paragraphs prior to this. And you can summarize in a nice little Excel-like looking form. And so you can, in a few words, and what you can summarize what you've already done in the project. And that is generally what the community benefit plan is going to look like. Like I said already, yes, If you'd rather use your own sort of template to create for community plan, you may do so, but make sure you include all of the parts and pieces that are required to be part of the community benefit plan. Okay, next slide, please. The next slide is what's called the summary slides. This is a maximum of 2 slides. And with that, you need to include 8 different parts. They are listed right there. There's a project summary, a project location, a description of the technology impact, a proposed project goals, any key graphics, illustrations or charts or tables, the project's key takeaways, the top line community benefits, project titles, prime recipients, so on and so on, the requested DOE and proposed applicant cost share. Now, in the slides that you're going to provide, which, yes, there's only 2, so there's only so much space you're going to have, you don't have to include them in the order that they're listed here, as long as you include all 8 on those slides. And yes, it only gives you so much space, so you need to be as brief as possible while also covering what needs to be addressed. And yes, it is going to be saved and uploaded, included as a Microsoft PowerPoint file or relevant to that. If you go to the next slide, please. The 4th one, which this is called this is a continuation budget. Like I said before, this only applies to topic area 1. Now, within topic area 1, this is going to be up to about 5 years. Where in the past, if you've done NEOPs or other funding announcement type things, you've been able to submit your budget for all of the relevant years, all into one application. Now, when you apply for your initial applications, they're still going to cover what you're going to have for project goals for all the years of your project. You're still going to include your projected budget for each of the years. But with budget topic area 1, at the end of each year, you have to reapply for the continuation for the next year, which the continuation will require at the end of the year, you have to resubmit your project abstract for what you're going to do for the next year. You have to resubmit your project narrative for what you're going to be doing for the next year. You're going to resubmit your budget justification for for the costs are going to be associated for the next budget year, as well as the budget form, the Excel form that lists the budget budget pieces that are going to be applied for the next budget year. Which, with that continuation, if anything is changed for this is you get to explain why it's going to be different. And there's a lot of different reasons why, and changes happen. That happens in projects. It's not a huge deal, but you will get to, in fact, you will have to explain what differences there are and why they are. And please provide the maximum justification that you can for those. These forms will need to note, like I said, any changes from the initial award. And like I said, this does only apply to topic area 1. So if you're doing topic area 2, you do not have to do the continuation here. And that addresses the 4 new forms that will be part of this FOA. You can go to the next slide, please. The next section addresses, this is the cost share section. Both topic area 1 and topic area 2 will have a cost share of 50%. The cost share must come from non-federal sources, otherwise required by law. The prime contractor in each project is the one that is legally responsible for showing the cost share contribution and where it's going to come for the full length of the project. Applicants must provide written assurances for their cost share in their initial application. Again, you have the next slide, please. Now, the cost share, the prime applicant is not responsible, is not necessarily responsible for the full cost share. It may come through a combination of the prime and subrecipients on the project. Vendors and contractors that are not subrecipients are not to provide cost share portions, as well as FFRDCs, the federally funded research and development centers. Funds that are provided to those are not to be included for cost share if the funds come from the federal government. FFRDC funds may only contribute cost share if the contributions are paid from contractor management fees or some sort of non-federal source. So the funds for FFRCs are coming straight from the federal government. They can't be included in cost share. Cost share contributions may include a number of categories: personnel costs, fringe costs, supply and equipment, indirect costs, other direct costs, or other relevant costs beyond just what's listed there. We're not going to tell you how you're going to break that out. That is up to you, how you want to break out where your cost share comes and how it's going to apply. The Appendix A of this application, of this FOA, provides a great deal of instructions of what counts towards cost share and how the cost share contributions are factored for their percentages. There's a great deal of instructions of how you get there. So any questions on how to apply cost share and how you get to it, please refer to Appendix A of the FOA when you receive it. Appendix A is going to be right about page 84 of the FOA when you get it. Like I said, with all of this, if any questions you do have as you progress through creating your application, please do ask, and we'll help you out the best we can. And with that is the end of what I have. So I will turn it back over to beyond that, if you do have any questions, up there are where to refer for your questions. And that is all I have for this.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. We will open up for questions for Jeff. We also have Andrew Ford online, who is contracting officer at the Idaho Operations Office, to answer any additional questions. Once again, you can raise your hand or you can put those questions in the chat. We do have about 30 minutes allocated to answer questions if you do have them. So I'll pause a moment and wait for those questions to come in. Thanks, Jeff, for the presentation. So Jeff, we have our first question in chat. So would 100 hours of personnel time equating to X number of dollars count as a cost share contribution?
I'm going to say it certainly can. So it certainly would be part of it, and potentially all of it, depending on what your project is valued at.
We've got a question from Thomas Johnson. I'll reword a little bit. Would a waiver of 50% indirect costs at a university count? And Thomas, I'm assuming you're saying a waiver of 50% direct would mean the university would not charge indirect on the project. Is that a correct clarification? Okay.
That's a good question.
That's what the question is then.
I think I'm going to refer to Andrew for that one. If
Andrew, let me make sure we have your mic muted or unmuted, excuse me. So let me just move down here and make sure. There we go. Andrew, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yeah, 2 CFR 200.306 has further details in regards to cost sharing or matching. But yeah, if if actual charges of indirect rates, if it's consistent with your indirect rate agreement and you guys don't, or foregone charges for allowable indirect costs are permitted to be counted as cost share.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Andrew. Let's go to our next question, which is on women-owned small businesses. For this purpose of for this funding opportunity, is there a certification involved from a third party, or is simply being a small business that is owned by a woman sufficient?
Well, I mean, if you can show that you meet the requirements for being a women-owned small business, which means at least 51% of the ownership of that business is women-owned, then if, as long as you can show that, then yeah, that qualifies for what it is.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Next question is, would in-kind contribution from a nuclear power company count as a contribution? For example, contributing workforce training spaces.
I mean, I think that it could. You'd have to show what kind of value that provides to the project. At some point, that does need to be translated into an actual number in dollars and cents, but I think it's possible.
Thanks, Jeff. Andrew has put some information on unrecovered indirect costs, potential cost share. So just recognize that's in the chat for everyone. Thomas, I saw your hand went up temporarily. Do you want to ask an additional question? All right, I'll take that as no.
I just want to remind everybody too that that you're gonna, when you see the FOA when it's released, Jeff mentioned Appendix A of the FOA, which is all about cost share, and there's some pretty good descriptors in this section. There's a description on cash cost share, in-kind cost share, and the type of things that would be included in that in-kind space. And then a section on funds from other federal sources, and then also fee or profit, and a discussion there. So again, a lot of good information here. Just really encourage you to take a look at it. We'll be following these guidelines to a T when it comes to looking at and evaluating a proposed cost share. After you read the FOA, if you have additional questions on cost share, then certainly send your questions to the email addresses that have been provided, and specifically questions on cost share, I believe would go to the id.gov email address. So again, we'll share those before we sign off, but please take a look at that once that FOA is released. That'll really help you understand a lot more and a lot of the detail in cost share.
All right, thanks, Aaron. We will hold on for a few more minutes here. If there are any other questions, please submit them to the chat or raise your hand. If we don't have any questions here in the next few minutes, we'll likely wrap up the session. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so we'll wrap up the session here. I'd like to thank you all for attending. I'm hoping that this was informative, and that as the funding opportunity comes out, that you can add in any questions that you have by emailing us those questions, and we'll both post responses and get back to you as soon as we can. Do want to thank Alice, Jenna, Jeff as our speakers, and for all of the support staff that made this webinar possible. And with that, Alice or Aaron, I'll put you on the spot, but any parting thoughts, anything else you'd like to give to the group before we sign off?
First, I'll say Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sticking through to the end for those who did. These were really good questions. We'll definitely be following up with, documenting these questions and answers so that everyone can see them. And I'll kick it over to Aaron.
Thanks, Alice. Really nothing additional. Just thanks for participating in our webinar. And we certainly look forward to your questions, additional questions if you have them, and really excited to see the applications that will come in on this funding opportunity. So thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you and working with you. Thanks, Drew.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Yep. Take care. We'll see your questions and see your applications soon. Hope you have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.